The following podcast contains adult language and situations. It is not suitable for younger or more sensitive listeners. ElectraCast.
So, the next step from Julliard is always prostitution, because, that's a great training ground for that.
That leads me to ask, how did you get into this line of work?
I know. Well, it's partially Julliard. No, not really.
Hi, you're listening to Bodacious Minds, the show that empowers you in every way, from the personal to the professional, from the bedroom to the boardroom. Nothing is off limits. We talk about sex, relationships, money, spirituality, entrepreneurship, health, wellness, and yes, more sex. I'm your host, Yvette Lopez, a former Playboy, Maxim, and FHM model who is also a singer, compassionate healer, certified in energy work, and an entrepreneur in wellness and fashion. Welcome to our show.
I think it would be great if you told our audience a little bit more about yourself. I mean, how did you become you?
How did I become me? Well, there's so many reasons. I'm from Santa Fe, New Mexico, born and raised. And my mother raised me as a single parent, but I had 8 grandmothers alive, Sasha.
What?
8 grandmothers. My great-great-great-great-grandmother on both sides.
Oh my gosh.
Sides of the family were alive, and then all the way down. And actually, I just buried one of my grandmothers in December, and I have one left. Oh. So I was taught to love and be strong, and my grandmothers were very... Talk about empowering. My grandpas went to work. My grandmothers stayed home and baked pies all day long. And my other grandma owned a beauty salon, and they would all go get pampered all day long. Most of my grandmothers, that weren't 102, would get together and once a week and get pampered and nails done and hair done. And so they taught me to be a beauty queen. So I grew up in my grandmother's beauty salon, always getting my hair done. And,
oh, yeah.
Learning to be always well-dressed and to be in charge. My grandmothers were always in charge.
I want to add to what you just said, that it's an old school Latina thing to be all made up and to make sure you look good.
Oh, yeah. My grandmother tells me now when we FaceTime, she's 87. She tells me, go put on some makeup. Your husband can't see you that way. She'll tell me, comb your hair.
I totally believe it.
Yeah, it's always be clean, be pretty, and be the queen of your home.
Yes.
is what I was taught by my grandmothers.
Oh.
Moved out at the age of 16 to Las Vegas, Nevada, and lived with my Jewish auntie there. And she taught me how to get into the entertainment business. She had 2 daughters who were identical twins, and they were in Playboy, and they were singers, and she told me I should do the same thing. I had no fucking clue what she was talking about. I'm like, me, model? Sure. I had done some nude modeling when I was younger. Well, younger, I was 16. I think I was 16 when I did the nude modeling. My mom had signed a release to allow it to happen for Greg Gorman. But it was scary. I'm on my own, and didn't know what I was going to do. Dropped out of high school and had no fucking clue what I was going to do. All I knew is I was not going to get pregnant at 16 like most of my friends and be alone and be a single mom. So moving to Nevada was the best decision I ever made. It really opened my world to some great things. Playboy, and just meeting people in the casino business and learning how to be a lady, a woman at such a young age, not really getting to be a teenager. I guess I was a crazy teenager at some point, but I had to grow up pretty quickly.
Very cool.
And how about you, Miss Thing? You're not, you represent us Latinas very well.
Yeah.
You're a mind coach, you're a single mom, and you're killing it at everything you do. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. So I am a mind coach. And, I practice a combination of hypnotherapy and life coaching. I've now been doing this for over 10 years. And the reason why I started doing this kind of work was because I experienced severe trauma as a kid. Severe, unusual trauma as a kid. And as a young adult, it came back to haunt me. And hypnotherapy was the one thing that worked for me. And trust me, I tried seeing a psychologist, a psychiatrist. I took the pills, popped the pills, and nothing seemed to work. And I was honestly to the point where I was suicidal. I just couldn't take it anymore. It's something
I
had to
understand that.
give. Yeah, you know what that's like. It's like when you're in that dark place and you just can't seem to get out. And so I was so desperate that I went in to see a hypnotherapist. And oh my God, every time I went in, I got better and better until here we are. Along the way, I actually found my own calling.
Well, you are good at it. That's why you're my hypnotherapist.
That's right. That's how we met. We just connected. We
The
vibed.
funniest thing, when I called you for an appointment, I'll never forget. My husband and I were sitting in the car, and I'm like, I need to see somebody. I was about to go on crazy pills myself. I called you, and you're like, in fact, I have a client who I just got off cocaine.
That's
And
right.
I thought to myself, I was like, whoa, don't get a hold of yourself. I like my cocaine problem. I just want to forget that I have anxiety, please. Don't take anything else away from me right now.
Yeah.
But I'm happy that you're on the show with me and we get to explore each other's life and show our audience that, that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, no matter where you come from, what color you are, what's happened to you in your life.
That's right.
I did grow up in a crazy, fucked up space after my dad came back into my life, and I honestly didn't know that I was going to make it through any day, so I'm happy to have you here and supporting me while we go on this journey together.
Yeah, and I think one of the great things about us, just in general, is that neither one of us is competitive with other women. If anything, we have this attitude of camaraderie, which is something that I really love, that I think we have in common, is that we're not judgmental, we're not critical of other women, we're able to see women for who they say they are and just be able to accept people for who they are. And it's all about, making it so that we all rise together.
Jealousy is an ugly thing, isn't it? It's so fucked up. I grew up with women always fighting all the time because women wanted to beat me up, or even in first grade. There was one girl who picked on me from first grade to sixth grade. I think we fought like 1,000 times. A jealousy thing. And it's happened my whole life. And I was never raised to want something that didn't belong to me. I don't understand jealousy. I just know if I want something, I'm going to go get it. And that's how I've lived my life.
That's right. What you experience doesn't take from anybody else.
Exactly. How I that part I don't understand. It's like, how do you hate on someone else or disrespect someone else and think that makes you a better person or gives you something beautiful in your life? It doesn't. It makes you ugly and empty, right?
Yeah, totally. I agree. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, you're listening to Bodacious Minds. Stay put because we'll be right back. Welcome back. I'm Sasha Carrion with our host, Yvette Lopez. So, Yvette, our first guest is a very interesting guest. Tell us a little bit about it.
Well, she is the former #1 escort in the country, and she's going to be opening up about sex work.
Oh my God.
Being an escort.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's going to reveal some secrets, Sasha. So be prepared.
Really, it's like that. It's one of those. She's giving us a fair warning, guys. So that just tells you want to stick around. Now, for a lot of people, this would be a really taboo topic. But one of the great things that Yvette and I actually have in common is that we are not judgmental and we are not into being critical of other people. We are big on seeing other people for who they are. And we are big on camaraderie when it comes to women. Both of us have the idea that we all rise together. Right, Yvette?
Yes, we do. We are here to help you have a better relationship with yourself, with success, with love, and sex, guys.
That's right.
It's all about empowering each other and freeing ourselves from shame.
Yeah. And learning from each other. Because one of the things that I found is that there's always something to learn from each and every person. I mean, I've had it happen where a person comes in to my office for a session and they share with me this golden nugget of information that makes such a huge difference in the way I see something. And so I really look forward to talking with our guest.
I agree. It does the same for me. It really allows me to open up and be honest with myself.
Yeah.
And I find it very therapeutic. Just like my sessions with you.
Yeah.
Everyone, Sasha is my hypnotherapist.
Yay. Awesome. Well, let's go ahead and let's invite Sephe to the call.
Hi, Sephe.
Hey, Sephe, how are you?
Hi, you guys. I'm good. How are you? Happy morning.
Yes.
Happy morning. I love your background.
Oh, thank you.
I know you guys can't see it, but the background is her beautiful bed.
A canopy bed.
Yeah.
No, it used to be my working bed. This was like where all the magic happened. You know, it was like my partner in crime. I don't want to say in crime, but it was sort of in crime. It's a stupid crime. It shouldn't be a crime. It's my partner in what shouldn't have been a crime. But yes, this was the bed of the magic bed.
So if that bed could talk, I could only imagine.
Oh my God, I was saying to my bed, write the next book, because I can't. I'm like, and I'm so stopped up right now. I'm like, can you write it? You've seen it all, darling. And she said, so yeah.
Well, Sephe, I know Sasha hasn't spoken to you before, but Sasha, Sephe went to Julliard.
Really?
And did you graduate from Juilliard, Sephe?
I did, yeah.
You did, right?
So, the next step from
Yeah.
Juilliard is always prostitution, because, that's a great training ground for that.
That leads me to ask, how did you get into this line of work?
I know. Well, it's partially Juilliard. No, not really. But partially, like, I went for 9 years of school. So it was 5 years of undergrad, 4 years of grad at Juilliard. And, they do this thing. They give students at like really young ages credit cards, which was, you're like, yeah, okay, money, thank you, yeah. And, that's how you put yourself through school too. You work and you pay your credit cards. So that, and then student loans, which they don't tell you you have to pay off the second you graduate. Like you walk out the door and they're already billing you with that big, thick Bible booklet, So I was sort of stopped. I was like, what am I going to do? I was so stupid, like, I think for all those years of school, nobody taught me about money in the practical world. So I was just going to go in for 1 or 2 days and see, because I thought, what can I do? I don't know. I'm a terrible waitress.
You're talking about escorting, going in for 1 or 2. You mean 1 or 2 clients?
Well, I didn't know. Like, I was going to go on an interview, and I thought it was going to be like really dangerous and seedy, and like I was going to end up like with a pimp beating me and like a needle in my arm and like on a street corner and like but I went in and it was a really beautiful apartment and a really nice woman. I wish it had been Heidi Fleiss, but I wasn't in LA, I was in New York.
I'm telling you, we'd be millionaires right now.
I one time, not to get too far off the track, but I was around during Heidi's time. She was just busted, but she was just busted and the whole thing about 3 years into me being in the business. And I so wanted to be with her because, she was the person. But I wasn't beautiful enough, darling. So I couldn't really apply for that job. Like there's echelons of beauty.
Oh, did she have a way to apply?
Well, not really, but girls would introduce each other and, they would say, well, Heidi wouldn't take you. She only takes, gorgeous models like Yvette. But
oh, yes.
No,
Yvette, tell us a little bit about this.
Yeah.
There's what you guys want me to tell.
Do tell, darling, do tell.
So I didn't know that she had the girls, and Heidi and I have been friends. I don't know if you know this. Heidi and I have been friends for 20 years, and she actually has done so much for my life. She's so smart. She was, I think, the chess champion player of California for 4 years in a row. She gave me my first pet hotel, my pet grooming business and hotel in Las Vegas, Nevada. So then I expanded that and turned it into like in-home pet care before in-home pet care was a thing. But she taught me how to manage my women, the girls who worked for me. So she taught me how to take 35% of any job I give them and how to handle them, because women are hard. We have our fucking periods. We have our hormones. We have a breakup. We're so fucking confused most of the time. And she's the one that kept my business going for quite some time. Yeah.
I guess business
So
is
not to,
business in the end, right? It's
business is business. It's all about that money. No, I think you would have done just fine with her. She would have loved you. I know she would have. You're going to meet her one day. We're going to hang out.
How did you meet her, though, since you weren't in the same age group and she was already retired probably by then, right? She probably already moved to Vegas then?
Well.
Well.
Let me think about this.
Okay.
I wanted to do this show so I can speak the truth about my life and not live with the idea of shame with anything that I've ever done. And that's what the show is about, is making sure that we get across to everyone that it's okay to have done things, right? So I guess you guys know where this is going, maybe. I have done some sex work, yes. It was a big part of my life and my way to survive in the entertainment business. And I was hired to see Steve. And Steve and Heidi, sorry, I've never told anyone this, so it's a little, bear with me. Steve and Heidi were been best friends before Heidi even had her business. And Steve was in a bedroom with another girl. I showed up. Heidi and I couldn't stop talking, and she was like, let's just hang out. So we just hung out, and then Steve asked me, he goes, you're the type of woman I date. How are you here? That's exactly what he told me. And I said, well, I guess that's a good thing, huh? And then us three, the other girl left, us three stayed together for days and years. And anyway, so yes, I have done sex work and I absolutely loved it. It was the best experience and time of my life. To me, it was a way to release. I used to use other things to release, a lot of getting in trouble. And I found that being able to be someone else and be sexy, be treated like a queen was really important, and it really changed my life. I have nothing bad to say about it besides a lot of heartbreak. But yes, so, I get trying to survive. What the fuck are you going to do? How do I do this? Well, I can suck dick, I thought to myself. I have great tits. I was in Playboy. Why not? What more? I mean, it was just like, I fuck for free anyways. It was like, who cares? And I was very fortunate that I got to have some of the best experiences of my life.
When I was going to write the book, and there's always this question, you say, why am I writing this? I mean, why? When I came down to it, first you go through all the serious things, like, well, I shall teach people about feminism, and I shall, and it's like, shut up, okay, stop it, stop. But the real reason when I sit down and I write and try to get past those days where it's hard is because it was one of the best times of my life. So it's like glory days in some ways. And you think, what an opposite point of view that the world has.
Completely.
And yet, and then what we have. And so when I said it to myself, why do I want to do this? It's kind of like I wanted to take people's hands, like my friends, and go, you be my friends and let me take you on a journey to where I got to live in a world that...
I get it.
Right? And so like writing the second and third books, I'm feeling like, okay, I'm off on a bad tangent of like, and then in my own life. But I want to... The book is about, let's go into this world that Yvette experienced, that I experienced, that was really... Okay, there were days you're like, really? Seriously, really? But every job has that, and I'd rather have that with a guy and his dick, than like in a Greek restaurant.
It doesn't talk back. It doesn't talk back, so it was fine.
Well, I've known some that have talked back.
Tell us a little bit more about your profession. Why don't you describe it to us? Tell us a little bit about it. I mean, what does this work entail?
I went through several phases of it. So when I first started, I was with an agency, kind of like Heidi was, madam. So at that time, which was a long time ago, when the dinosaurs roamed, there were yellow page books. Yes. And the books were really thick, and most of it was escort ads. And so that's because the girls couldn't afford to be independent. For me, I know Yvette had a different experience, I think. But anyway, for me, it was with the agencies, and you split 50-50, and you had a good person who took care of you, so forth. And then the internet came out, and it changed the world, and it also changed the business, because then if you were smart and could be safe and understood how to run your own business, then you could work for yourself. And that changed my life, because instead of making half, I made twice as much. And my bed, of course, was my partner. And but those days were very different than the escort days with the agencies.
What did they charge? What did they take from you? Was it like a specific, was it half?
Yeah, it was half, but it was worth it, because, she had an apartment and an ad, and she kept you safe. And so at the time it was like, okay, at the time it was $200 an hour for the girl next door. I was Gwen, the really cute, adorable girl next door. Same ad, the guy would say, well, no, I want someone who's a model actress. And I'd be Natasha, who was the model actress, for $300 an hour. So it'd be $100 for me or $150 for me, So that's kind of, at the time, what it was.
So question for you, when you become these 2 different or 5 different people, whatever it is sex different? Do you fuck like you're, is it the same type of thing?
It's just in their mind, It's like, do you?
Because I know when you get drunk Yvette, you get, angry Yvette. It just depends. So I don't know if everybody else goes through that.
I imagine that it's just a fantasy, right?
I think it's like if a guy goes, I want to go on a vacation, and so he picks the Ritz, and the other guy picks the Marriott. Well, you're getting a hotel room. It's just how you're treated. I don't know.
It's the same thing.
It was just at that time. And then, of course, when we became independent, it's completely different, because then I worked out of my apartment. And I had control over the whole space, and people came to me. So I made it like Scheherazade, the whole Arabian Nights with curtains, and you stepped in from the outside, and it was like a whole different world. And candles and music, and the music was really important because, okay, I'm gonna really age myself right now, but we had those CDs. I don't know if you've ever heard of them, but
I still listen to CDs.
And so they had CD players that was like 3 you could do. And that would really take you through the whole appointment. So I would know.
Oh, so you knew by the music that it was your hour was done.
Well,
that's genius.
When I worked for
way
myself,
of timing things.
Yeah, it was my way of timing. So it was like,
that's what I mean.
Yeah, I would do a 2-hour minimum. So they couldn't come over for less. So it was like 2 hours from 12 to 2, and then 2 hours from 4 to 6, and then 2 hours from 8 to 10 or whatever. So I could fit in 3 appointments a day with break time.
I'd be on my knees staring at the clock. 1 more second.
No, I had help.
Very strict on my hour.
No, I didn't mind that at all. Yeah.
When it comes to the appointment times, I imagine that if things only last so long, I imagine that a big part of the conversation has to be talking.
Yeah, so that you're exactly right, Sasha, because I realized that what men tended to want really, of course it was about sex, but it was more intimacy, being heard, being listened to, being cared for, and mostly being reflected in somebody else's, a lot of times when we have sex with somebody new, we want to see how they react to us. We want to see who we are with them. It's kind of a narcissistic kind of thing a little bit. And so it's each, testing the chemistry. So I think they wanted to have a mirror, somebody reflecting back to them their virility, their interestingness, So the first part of it, with these 3 CDs on, I would always know when it was time to move to the next section. So it was like a play. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Julliard. Came in really handy. But it was like a play in that they would come in and I'd have it pretty well scripted. The only thing that wasn't was the other actor, which was the guy. And he would be the improv of it. So it'd sit down and we'd have champagne, because you could drink champagne all day, by the way, and never get drunk.
Yeah.
You can. And so my whole refrigerator was like a case of Veuve Clicquot champagne and Camel Light cigarettes, It's like, that's it. So we'd have this talking period and sexy talking, and finding out things. And there's, like a talk show like your guys are doing.
You're a therapist in your own right.
A little bit, except I didn't really let them go down those rabbit holes. It's like, we can't, because it's supposed to be happy and sexy, not like.
Oh, got it.
I always had the guys that wanted to talk about their wives. It was always about how miserable they were.
Wives? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oops. Yeah.
I
guess
never
they
let
just
them
needed
get
to
Not
vent.
every guy was married, sorry.
No.
But it was what it was.
I think men do that to justify a little bit why they're, but I don't. I think when they used to do that, I used to say, well, yeah, but have you tried this on her? Have you tried that? Because a lot of times they're not taking responsibility for their part of it. I mean, and sometimes if you're with a guy who's complaining about his wife, you go, oh, I so get why she doesn't want to have sex with you. And actually, she should call me and thank me right now. She should be like sending me thank you for taking this over because, oh my God. And I'm just talking about the really horrible ones, but so.
Oh my God. There's a story in your book about the Asian guy with the small penis and the big condom. I couldn't stop. I laughed for days.
Oh.
Some of your stories in here are fucking hilarious.
Oh, thank you.
And because I've been out of sex work for a very long time, it just brought up some great memories for me.
Really?
Yeah, it was like, because, you put that shit out of your mind, like out of your head. You don't want to, we're taught to think that it's bad and be shamed about it and feel shame because you did it. Reading your book really, I fell in love with you. And then I thought I have to sleep with this woman. Like she can give me some good tips.
Yeah,
That's
you
right,
need to
because
sleep
you
with
voted
me.
number one escort in the country.
Yeah, it was crazy because I'm not there are girls that are like Yvette. They're tall, gorgeous. They've been in Playboy. They are models. I'm really short and stubby. And, and
I'm 5'2".
okay, but you look photogenic. Like, I only look photogenic from, one space, just this much, and that's it.
You're
and everything
silly.
else is
No, you're a gorgeous woman.
man. So,
Now, who decides this number one escort in the country? Who created this whole thing anyway?
right? That's a really good question. So, a long time ago, again, back when the dinosaurs roamed, there was the internet that first came out. And on the internet, these little groups popped up, which now is nothing. But at the time, one was these guys who all liked to talk about their experiences with escorts, right? And part of the reason for that wasn't just to brag, was to keep them safe and keep them from spending money or ending up in a pimp place or something like that. So they would give each other information and they'd say, yo, I saw Sasha and, she was safe and, great tits. And also, she says she's going to charge you $300, but she's really going to charge you $400. And, they start sharing information, right? I didn't know much about it because I didn't know that we had a thing called personal computers because I was like, what's that? So anyway, but I had friends who were much smarter and they had personal computers. So anyway, this site existed and it was called the Big Doggy, kind of like Yelp, but the Yelp of the escort world or something. I didn't know it existed, but one day I saw a guy and his name was Charlie and he stayed over his time, 3 hours or something. He left at midnight and I'm walking him to the door. And he's like, so you know who I am, don't you? I'm like, yes, you're Charlie. And he's like, no, but you know who I really am, right? I'm like, Charlie. And he's like, no, I'm the big dog. And I'm like, yes, you are. Ruff, ruff. You're a big, big dog. Ruff, ruff, ruff. He's like, all right, you don't get it. He said, but you will. And I was like, oh, okay, I don't know. So as the weeks went by, I suddenly got super busy. It's like I went from regular to I was booked a month in advance. And I was like, this is crazy. What is going on? So every time a guy would come see me, I'd say, why did you want to come see me? And most of the guys would say, well, I just wanted to see what number one was like. Or, and I'd be like, he's like, you're number one. I'm like, no, you're number one. No, you. And then it turned out that the big dog was the big doggy. And that's how I found out that I had been with the big doggy who put me onto his list of rankings of girls. And so there was a list of 100 girls, top 100. And I got to be number one for a couple of years. And you know how earlier you were talking about jealousy with women? I don't know if you, yeah. So I loved our business because it was the one place women took really good care of each other. And there wasn't jealousy. We were kind of comrades in arms or comrades in bed, kind of thing. We worked together. At that point, when I became number one, this girl who was my bestest working girl for a long time, good friend, she turned against me. It was very strange. I went out of town and I came back to find out that she told everybody that I was hurting her and that I had done all these things and they were going to take me off the #1 list. And yeah, I don't know why she did that. And then we found out that it was her who...
Jealousy.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know why. It was so weird because she was actually amazing. But so yeah, being #1 changed everything. And then that was real job security. You know, being booked 6 months in advance, you go, oh, I got work. So yeah.
Now, how about like non-sexual clients? Do you sometimes have people that just come in because they just need some company? Maybe they're just lonely?
Well, not really, because everything's predicated on the sexuality. But some people you do spend, like I've spent a week with and we've had sex, you know, once every day, but not very, you know, it's not the biggest part of the being together. Or like in those 2 to 5 hours, you have sex maybe once. But I like to make it all elaborate, you know, so because the actual sex part, you know, that actual sex part really should only last a very short time if you're still going to walk and be functional, you know, to it for another client later. so you got to be practical about it. So you got to keep him, you know, it's like having a puppy. You got to keep him entertained so he doesn't chew the sofa. You know what I mean? Oh my God.
That's hilarious. That is hilarious.
So you do the talking and the joking and the laughing and keep them real busy, and then the music changes and it's part 2, and you go to the bathroom and, you know, you think you put a little KY just in case, you know, and then there's a very elaborate foreplay that goes on for as long as possible, which is really nice for me too. You know, it's like sensual and you get into the music. And then really the sex part doesn't actually last that long unless you really want it to.
Did you find yourself like meeting someone and not wanting that session to end? Have you ever done that?
A lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
I had wished sometimes that, yeah, definitely. And I don't know whether, well, you know, because I felt so safe in that world and it was my domain. You know, it was like Persephone in Hades. You know, I was underground and safe, and it's where I controlled things, and it's where men treated me beautiful, and I really got to know people very quick, men and women. The whole point is intimacy, so they come in to be intimate, so you get the best part of that. So yeah, I never wanted it to end.
Yeah.
Sometimes there were one or two people. It's like, oh God, when is the song going to come on? When is it going? Oh, you know.
Yeah. So you say men and women. Were you with couples? Women would hire you as well?
I only had one woman who hired me on her own. But most of the time, if it was a woman, it would usually be for her husband or for her boyfriend. Yeah. You know, come in with the couple.
I love that.
Like you said. Most of the time it was a good experience. One time it wasn't, and she got me out of there pretty fast. I don't know. She was like, all right, enough of this. She grabbed her husband's dick.
She panicked.
I don't know. She just like all of a sudden looked at me, grabbed her husband's dick, jerked him off really hard. He was done. She's like, bye, here's your money, go. Okay.
Now, Sephe, I'm just curious. I mean, you've been doing this for a long time. How did this impact your family life? I mean, do you have any kids?
I have somebody that I adopted along the way. So, yeah. No, nobody knows. Nobody. That's why I use this pen name. So, I never told anybody in my family. And the times that it did get out or a friend knew or something like that usually impacted me in a very bad way. Like people were, I was ostracized or I was hurt or something like that. So really most of the trouble I had in the world came from the real world and mostly from women, which was interesting.
Oh my gosh.
Mostly if I stayed underground and I stayed secret, my life was great. Like it was just, you know, there were things you couldn't do. Like at a certain point, I no longer have a resume. Like I can't walk into a business and go, well, you know, I'm really good at business. And they're like, hey, what have you done? I'm like, well, I'm really good with people and give good head. For a long time.
My hands.
Yeah, I don't have another job I can transition into easily. So there are things you miss. Oh, also, you can't date men because it's really, you know, what's the first question a man asks you is, what do you do for a living? And you go, well, you know, let's skip that question.
How does that impact your love life in that case?
I don't have one.
Oh, no.
Well, no, I don't know. I mean, I've had one in the past and, you know, one time I dated a client and that turned into a long-term thing. Several times I dated clients. But after a while, I'm like, yeah, men treat me so well in the business. And once you're in the real world, somehow you become taken for granted and so forth. And I don't feel like it. I'm like, no, you know what? I don't feel like it. I feel like dealing with this on a temporary basis. You can deal with me on a temporary basis. Sounds good. And then I get to sleep by myself if I want to. I think in some ways it's a compromise, of course. But I think for me now, it's a better compromise. Unless I met, my true love. And that was that. But I don't think that's going to happen at this point.
It happens. I didn't think it was going to happen.
But you know what? It's definitely not going to happen if the door is closed. And so maybe it'd be a good thing to come visit the hypnotherapist.
I don't know. I don't believe that. I think that when we think it's not going to happen, that's when, because my door was closed. I never thought I'd meet a man who was going to marry me. And even with, like she said, Sephe was saying with relationships, I dated my clients.
Well, tell me how that happened, Yvette. How did you meet him? And
so I was the same as you. My sex work was my comfort zone. I was treated so kindly and like a queen all the time. And when I would date the men in the real world, it was not good. They were so fucked up and so jealous. And I always found the guys that pretended to be, I never told anyone what I did, ever, but pretended to be okay with who I was, who is wild and free and fun. And then they always want to change me. And then every relationship, I found myself having to change who I am to be in a relationship. So then I was miserable. And I had left this last relationship. It was god-awful, disgusting. And I thought, I'm never getting married. I'm okay with that. I'm going to move back to Santa Fe, New Mexico. And a friend of mine didn't like a guy that I was sleeping with. And so he's like, what, you wait till I introduce you to my homie. I was like, and my husband's so not a homie type guy, but that's what my friend called him. And my husband had had bad relationships as well. The women that he chose were abusive to him. And so he had insecurities and I had my insecurities. And so I was like, let's meet. We talked on the phone for a couple of days. He had been in Denver for a couple of months because of his breakup. He came back to Santa Fe. And on our first date, we just never left each other. At first, he said, we don't have enough in common to make this work. And I said, that's going to be our glue. I know that's what's going to keep us together because we can learn from each other. And I needed something different in my life. I was so tired of being, when you have everything in common with someone, you can't learn, you can't have fun. It's all the same shit. And to me, I found it quite boring. So my husband, his name is Louis. He was very welcoming and open and had told me that he had thought about hiring girls just to make it easy on himself. I didn't tell him anything yet. But I had asked him, I was like, hey, have you ever been with, to try to fill it out? And he said, yeah, I thought about hiring girls just to make it cheaper, he said, and easier because his ex-wives took a ton of money. And it's devastating. His man worked hard and thought these women loved him and treated him like shit and yet took his money. And my husband's so kind and so sweet. And as I got to know him, I opened up to him about my work, what I've done in my life, my decisions in my life. And he said, good for you. He said, and I was like, oh, is this happening? I'm still slowly telling him things and he knows that he's going to hear things that he's never known before from the show. And he's totally comfortable with that. But he believes that my past made me who I am and he's in love with me. And that's so awesome. I get to finally have this fucking freedom of saying I was a sex worker and I had fun. And, I'm able to live my life in a comfortable way now. And I'm so grateful for him. And, and it's just here we are because my husband supports me in many ways to push me forward, to open up about my experiences. It's a good thing. We have one fucking life. We're gonna, why can't I talk about what I've done and why can't I be who I want to be and be afraid of what people are going to think. And that's how we're raised, especially, I don't know how it is in other cultures, but Latina culture, it's like, you know, you're a mother, a housewife, you cook, you clean, you know, not saying that my grandmother's taught me that, but it's just the way the culture is. So everything around me, even my friends were having kids so young, and you know, I could never tell a lot of my friends. I think like 3 of my friends who are gay guys know what I did. But my husband, you know, that's why I say I didn't think I was going to. And I think that when you're not looking, you'll find. I think that that special person will be there. You know, it's just about, I think you have to, you know, one big thing that I did was when I got out of that last relationship, I kept blaming all the other relationships. Oh, they're dicks, they're this, they're that. You know, it's always everybody else's fault. And I had to really take a good look at myself and say, what the fuck am I doing wrong? Why is this happening to me? Nobody's doing it to me. I'm the one bringing it in and allowing it to happen and staying in the relationships. And then I started to notice all, you know, you say you have a type. Well, fuck, that's what I needed to change was my type. I kept going after the same guy and they all kept doing the same shit, you know? So the best advice I can give to anyone out there is quit going for your type. If it hasn't worked for you yet or now, it never will. Stop going for your type and let someone else in. Allow yourself to have the freedom of experiencing something new, something beautiful, something kind. And yeah, so anyway, I could go on and on about my husband. He's fucking amazing.
You know, I want to make sure that I state, though, that I think it's really important to realize, though, that if you have a certain stance, like I'm not going to find love, that it's very easy to even consciously, unconsciously do certain things, like block yourself in certain ways, like not go out or not do certain things. And in doing so, we end up blocking ourselves from love. And so that's a possible limiting belief that I heard. And of course, I respect other people's opinions, but I just want to make sure I point that out, that we can really end up blocking ourselves from love if we have certain mindsets.
I think that's very true. Obviously very true. I absolutely agree. And I think that that's true about me for sure. I think at a certain point I got to a place, and where I am right now could change next week. I don't know what it will, but where I got to a place where I was like, what's my priority? Where am I safe? Where do I feel good in my life? You know, time is limited. So, you know, it's like, what do I want to focus on? And who do I want in my realm? And, you know, what takes care of me? And so I prioritized writing and, you know, for a little while comedy and that sort of thing. But in order to do that, I have to still work. So I'm not free to meet people necessarily, and I really don't feel like fighting the world on it. You know, I like to sit and write my books and take them on this wonderful adventure. And when we're doing a podcast like this or a show like this, it's so wonderful and important because it really changes the dialogue around what this is. And eventually, if enough people, I think, see this as what it is, then we change the paradigm of thought about it. You know, like we were talking about sex work, but I think it's more, there is sex, of course. That's what it is. But it's also, for me, the work of pleasure, love, and intimacy, much more so. Mm-hmm. So I like to think, I want to call myself a pleasure worker or an intimate worker, not for my own self, but so that I change their minds. Like your husband said to you when he met you, what's a girl like? Or no, Steve said to you, you know, you're like a girlfriend. So in his mind, he had one way that you were supposed to show up. And people have us, you know, we show up as sluts or whores or prostitutes or sex workers and strippers or whatever. And they put us all under this one big umbrella, sex work, you know, and it's so different. Yeah. So just like everything else has different categories, and there's different kind of hamburgers and different kind of dogs, you know, there's all different kinds of people in this industry. So if we can unclump ourselves and make the vocabulary around it, I think, a little bit clearer and give people stories that they go, oh, I see what's different. You know, I see. Then there'll be more freedom, maybe for somebody like me to walk into the real world and go, yeah, this is what I did. And this is, you know, how I supported myself. And yes, I was still looking for love. And, you know, can I can I have that?
Yeah.
You know, right now I feel very
Meeting
limited.
somebody that makes you comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah, I just feel the real world kind of limits what I'm allowed to say and do.
It can, and it does. I know. I was there. Again, just meeting my husband, and my husband, supports me. And I thought the same thing. Dropped out of high school at an early age, basically got a fifth grade education because I had an abusive father that entered my life at a very young age. And my whole life was survival. Fuck. It was like, how am I going to live? How am I going to eat? Where am I going to sleep? What the fuck, right? But I feel like in life, like I was already having sex at the age of 13. I wasn't getting paid. I was already having, a ton of relationships, and all I was getting was abuse. And with sex work, like you said, Sephe, treated like a queen. And it really made me higher my standards for myself. And, when I did meet my husband, I was scared because I met him in New Mexico and I couldn't make money there. There's no fucking money to be made in the sex work industry there. That I know of. And it's such a small city that I thought to myself, I got to get back to LA. Steve Bing, my honey, is there. And I have other people that connect me to other people. And I told my husband after 2 weeks of dating, I was crying because I really liked him and I fell in love with him in 2 weeks. And I said, I'm going to be moving back to Los Angeles. And he started crying and he said, give him some time. He gave him, I think it was a day. And he asked me to please stay, that he felt we could really make this work and that he would take care of me. And he understood my situation and he did. He paid for my house so I would feel comfortable, know that I still had my house. And I went on a modeling job. I was acting. I do some acting as well. I booked a show and I went and when I came home, I had a welcome home banner and he had moved all of my stuff into the house. So I didn't have the stress of moving my stuff and feeling like it was traumatic. And, because it is, again, I was comfortable in my space and this is what I have and this is who I am and you can't take this away from me. But I allowed him to let me in. And, I know that there's someone out there for you, Seth.
Yes.
You're beautiful and you're number one in everything,
So funny. Your guy was a prince and he was really a prince. And that's really wonderful. I haven't really had, I have had wonderful, wonderful clients that treat me so beautiful. And I'm so grateful for them. So grateful. And so that's a great thing. I just haven't had that guy that I was in real life guy where I'm dating where he goes, you know what, I did have one a long time ago that he was like, let's get you out of this. And he paid for my apartment. And within about a year of us dating, he was pissed off that I had this expensive apartment. It was costing him money, put me back into a roach infested place in Midtown. But by this time I was so in love and I was already out of the business, so I lost several years and my heart, to this situation. That was just one of them. But I mean, so it's not so easy to just trust somebody and saying, okay, yes, well, I'll be in your hands,
No, it's nobody could do a better job than you, right? Taking care of yourself. That's how I saw it.
Yeah, for sure.
I wanted to ask you about being a mom in the business. And first, I know you said you adopted your daughter. And was there just at some point you thought, I'm going to quit and raise a child? I'm going to adopt somebody since I don't have someone?
Yes.
Is that how, I wanted to hear a little bit more about that.
Well, I had traveled a lot. I got to a place where when I was independent, I was traveling with my clients. So we'd go to Brazil or Argentina or here or there. And while he was working during the day, I would wander about. And of course, if you go to places like Brazil or Argentina, there's a lot of third world poverty that, it's really horrifying. And, I was a little bit naive about how poor people could be. I mean, I knew people were poor, but this was really scary, sad. And I thought, well, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to take home a child from Brazil. that's what I'll do. But they wouldn't let me. And also my client.
Oh, right then and there, just grab a child.
Yeah, and the person I was with was like, okay, I went to dinner that night all dressed up, because that's how I'm supposed to show up. And I said, we're going to adopt a child. And he's like, no, we're not. You see, no, this is not the job. And so, but I did go home and I did research it, and I did apply as a single mom. And I went through 3 years of paperwork and notaries and fingerprinting and all sorts of crazy stuff. I finally adopted a little girl from Guatemala when she was 1, and I had a nanny, and I was about, you had to have an apartment and have everything in order, and I quit. And then within a year of me quitting, well, I had saved up a great deal towards this, so that we would be okay for the rest of our lives till we died. So every day that I went to work for those 3 years, I had like everything that I was going to need, and all these funds were filling up, and I was like, we're going to be fine, So I saved up a lot of money, and the minute I got out, I was building us a little house in Florida, and I hired a woman to help me take the house from nothing to turnkey. And while she was doing that, she stole every dime I ever made in my whole life.
Oh, no.
In my life,
Oh my God.
yeah. And so within about a year, she had taken everything, and there was still a tiny.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's horrible. In Florida, especially Naples, Florida, at that time, or even now, perhaps, white collar crime was nothing. And when we went to court, I sued her. When we went to court, the lawyer, the judge, everyone sort of said to me, well, really, what you're looking at is a whore versus thief. And in this town,
Oh my God.
yeah, in this town, probably thief is going to win, So you might not want to have a trial. So we did have a mediation, and I did win about almost 800,000 of it back. There was still a lot out there, but that's what we could prove on paper at that moment. And so she was going to owe me the 800,000. She did not pay it. She just got off of most of it. She put everything in other people's names. Like her car was in her daughter's name, and her house was in her dad's name. And, so there was no touching her. She was ordered to pay like 100,000 of it, but by that point, I was sinking really fast. So, yeah, it was like I planned, but you know how that. Yeah.
So you had your daughter, and did you have your daughter for how long? Did you have your daughter before this happened? Like
less than a year.
No kidding.
Yeah, no, It was like
ouch.
It was great planning on my part, but horrible to hire this. I just happened into the one person you should not. It felt like the Little Mermaid. Like I ran across Ursula, the sea witch, and I was like, "What's the world's bad and has bad people in it? It's not Disney." It was so stupid of me.
Now, does your daughter know what you do?
No, I would never. It's not that she couldn't know someday, and I am writing to her about it. It's just that she doesn't have the maturity to be able to understand that it's not okay for everybody, and that the world is harder, and she doesn't have a mature mind to handle. Someday she will. She'll be a grown woman, and she'll be able to wrap her mind around it, but right now I'd rather protect her and keep her safe. Yeah.
Totally understandable.
Now, Sephe, I'm really curious about the comedy aspect of your life. Tell us a little bit about your comedy and your writing.
Okay, what comedy? Okay. So, yeah, I don't know. I always did better in comedy, like in comedies, because I looked funny. And so I always tended towards comedy. And also, when you're not the pretty girl, you be funny. That's your shtick, So that was my shtick. The way I got into stand-up, though, is I'd been in this business for a very long time. And like I said, I had no resume to get into anything in real life. And then the woman stole every dime I ever made. And suddenly I was like, oh, no. So I thought, well, what do I really, aside from suicide, what do I really want to do in my life? And I thought, I still want to do what I did, which is write and act. And, so I got to LA. I moved to LA. And you don't just get on stage. You can't just be like, well, take me. Here I am. So I thought, what's one way I can get back and do everything? And that was by doing stand-up, because you can get on stage. So I wrote a stand-up kind of routine about being an escort. And I thought it would be really like people would love it because it's out there, you know, and all these women and men talk about, like, men comedians are like, talk about dicks and sex and assholes and fucking people, and they demonstrate it on stage and they get, you know, people go, oh yeah. And women talk about vaginas and da da da. But when I talked, I didn't have one dirty word in it, not a swear word, and people would come up afterwards and go, you're really bold. That's really daring. Or comedians wouldn't talk to me because of the subject matter. It was really strange how, if the difference between their talking about sex, as long as you don't get paid, it's fine. So apparently mine was very risque, you know. So it was interesting to do because I think a lot of people liked it because they were surprised that somebody would come out and say, and then talk about it in a really funny, self-deprecating way. I hope. I don't think I was a grand comedian yet because I didn't put enough hours into it. But at one point, I was at a mic, and this woman named, I forgot, she's a wonderful comedian. She is Hispanic, and she was a Latina, and that's part of the story because she was the headliner. And so I said my bit, and she came up at the very end, and she was corralling the audience, and she goes, I mean, look at this white bitch. You know, she's like, she can make some money. She said, if I try to do it, I make half the price. You know, so it was just, you know, but after the show, she came up to me, and she said, that stuff, I hope you wrote a TV show, or I hope you wrote a book, because it's gold. You need to have it written down. And I thought, no, I haven't done any of that. And so it was a choice. It was like, do I spend all my time writing 4 jokes, takes 40 hours for me because I'm that way, going to these mics every night, or do I just take time out and write a book? So I thought, I'm just going to write the book because at least I'll have something to show, you know, after a year. So that's...
That it's your story too, right?
Yeah.
Somebody else can't take your material.
Exactly. And this book is only... I had written so much. And it was untamable. It was like herding cats. You know, it was impossible. So I had a wonderful coach I worked with named Emily. And she said, why don't you just make this book, this first book, just your first 6 months in the business? And that really brought it all in. Because then I was like, okay, that's doable. Then it's just about how I got into it, and was I going to survive it, and was it going to be wonderful, or was it going to be horrible, you know? And that's kind of enough for one book, you know, rather than trying to, you know, change the world, darling, you know.
One dick at a time.
Yeah, one penis at a time. That's how I built my house.
You had said something in your comedy act where it was like you built your house dick by brick.
I did one time, and then I also had.
It's so fucking true.
Yeah,
it's hilarious. You got to read her book. It's quite funny.
I love the cover, by the way. It's cute.
Thank you. It took us forever to get to that cover, and I've also heard people don't like the cover too. So, yeah, everybody, you know. What are you going to do?
Everyone, it's like assholes. Everyone has an opinion, right?
Totally.
Do you, be you. There's so much, you know, Sephe, it's funny. It's not funny. I want to say thank you because you really helped me release some stuff. Not only today on the show, but when I first had contacted you about being a guest on my show because I loved your book and I loved your story. You know, there's some freedom that I have in my life now, and being able to share my stories with you and compare them and not be judged. I appreciate women like you, you know, thank you. No. Thank you for being open and honest. And, you know, I hope that other women who hear our podcast can see how freedom from all of this shit that people put on us can really change your life and in many ways. And it's such a beautiful thing. So I just wanted to say thank you because now that we're sitting here talking, I have so much, I'm like, so many questions, and all I want to do is talk about clients and sex, and I know we can't do that because we don't have much time, and I would love to have you back on the show so we can
thank you.
You know, talk more about it.
I'm really glad you said that, Yvette. Thank you, because yeah, you know, when you live in this vacuum or underground, and then you go to put your story out there, there's so much fear around it. So it's so nice when it's out there, and you think, did I say what I wanted? Does it matter at all? And even if it just matters to one or two people, and they say, you know, you helped me exhale, you know, and just feel less shame. I mean, then I'm really like, I did a good thing, you know.
You did a good thing. I ran to my husband. I was like, you'll never guess who I just talked to. I was like, this woman, and she did what I did, and we talked for about an hour on the phone, and he was he just kind of chuckles at me and, okay.
Good for you.
Yeah, Sephe, it's been amazing having you with us today. Seriously, I mean, I would love for you to come back and join us again.
Well, thank you for having me, you guys. Really, I so appreciate it. It was so much fun.
Okay, you guys, we had Sephe Haven with us just now, and she's still with us. And her book, My Horizontal Life, An Escort's Tale.
With a W. Because Amazon doesn't...
Horizontal, like horizontal.
Like horizontal, yeah. With a W. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
With a W. And it is a really fun book. If you have any interest in knowing what the fuck we have to do to become great at having sex. No, I'm just kidding.
And fun is guaranteed in that book, by the way. It
is a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun, for sure.
You guys are sweet. Thank you.
Thanks for listening, and thank you to my guest co-host Sasha Carrion and our guest Sephe Haven. Bodacious Minds is a production of ElectraCast Media. Our executive producers are Mark Netter and Peter Rafelson. Our editor is Chris Sousa. I'm your host and producer Yvette Lopez. If you liked our show, please subscribe and give us a rating wherever you enjoy podcasts. And always remember, be smart, be sexy, own it. On the next episode of Bodacious Minds, join me in my intimate conversation with notorious Hollywood madam Heidi Fleiss about life and our dear departed friend millionaire Steve Bing, who proposed marriage to me years ago and recently took his own life. ElectraCast.
Hi, I'm Lessa Gadet, host of Her Extraordinary Life by Design podcast, where we celebrate women who are shaping their lives one extraordinary day at a time. I speak with women from all over the world about what they do and how they are passionately pursuing their dreams and creating meaningful impacts on their communities. So come join us and learn about all there is to learn about these extraordinary women.
Hey there, fabulous souls. I'm Stephanie Baklaan.
And I'm Eden Alpert.
And we're the hosts of the brand new podcast, Unapologetically Fab.
Get ready to join us on an amazing and real journey as we dive into life after 40 and own it.
We're all about changing the narrative, leaning into who you are, and living a life by your own design.
Join us as we embrace life unapologetically and redefine success.
This is Unapologetically Fab,
an ElectraCast production.
See you there.
ElectraCast.